The rain was falling so hard that the city looked like it was drowning when a wealthy CEO stepped into the road and raised her hand desperately at the only car passing by. She had never imagined asking a stranger for help, especially not someone driving an old sedan with a cracked windshield and a child's backpack on the passenger seat. But that night, pride meant nothing. She was stranded, exhausted, and running out of time. The single father behind the wheel slowed down, rolled down his window, and asked if she needed a ride. She climbed inside without knowing that the small object hanging from his rearview mirror would change everything she thought she knew about him. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can give people a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us bring more stories of compassion, courage, and unexpected human connection. Daniel Carter had spent the last 3 years learning how quickly life could change. Once, he had been a confident young engineer with a promising career, a beautiful home, and a wife who believed they would grow old together. Then a sudden illness took his wife, leaving him alone with his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Daniel became both mother and father overnight. He learned how to braid hair badly, pack lunches, attend parent meetings, work late shifts, and still wake up smiling when Lily climbed into his bed after a nightmare. Money became tight. Daniel eventually took a modest job at a technology company, working long hours while quietly trying to keep his family together. His old silver sedan was far from impressive. One door had a dent, the heater sometimes stopped working, and the passenger seat was permanently covered with Lily's drawings and schoolbooks. But Daniel kept it running because it was the one thing he could afford, and because it had carried him and his daughter through the hardest years of their lives. That evening, Daniel was driving home after picking Lily up from his sister's house. Lily was asleep in the back seat, hugging a stuffed rabbit. Daniel was thinking about overdue bills and an important presentation scheduled for the next morning when he saw the woman standing beside the road. Her expensive coat was soaked. Her shoes were covered in mud. She looked nothing like someone who belonged on that dark roadside. Daniel almost drove past, but something made him stop. The woman opened the door and climbed inside. She thanked him quietly and explained that her driver had been delayed, her phone battery had died, and her car had broken down several miles away. She needed to get to an important meeting across town before midnight. Daniel simply nodded and told her he would do his best. She noticed Lily sleeping in the back and asked if Daniel was her father. He smiled faintly and said yes. The woman looked at him with surprise, perhaps because she had expected a taxi driver rather than a tired father trying to get home before his daughter woke up. As they drove through the rain, lightning briefly illuminated the inside of the car. That was when the woman noticed something hanging from the rearview mirror. It was a tiny wooden heart, worn smooth around the edges. On one side were the words, "Daddy, you are my hero." Beneath them was a faded date. The woman suddenly stopped breathing. She leaned closer, staring at the little heart as though it had transported her somewhere years in the past. Her face lost all its color. Daniel noticed and asked if she was all right. She did not answer immediately. Her eyes remained fixed on the wooden heart. Finally, she whispered that she had seen one exactly like it before. Daniel glanced at the mirror. He explained that Lily had made it for him after her mother died. The date was the day of his wife's funeral, when Lily had been only 3 years old. She had not understood death completely, but she understood that her father was hurting. She had taken a piece of wood from an old craft box and asked someone to help her write the words. Daniel kept it there because it reminded him why he continued moving forward. The woman covered her mouth with her hand. She told him her name was Victoria Bennett. Daniel nearly missed the next turn. Victoria Bennett was the CEO of the company where he worked. For months, Daniel had heard her name in meetings and emails. She was known as brilliant, demanding, and nearly impossible to impress. He had never met her personally. But Victoria wasn't thinking about business anymore. She asked Daniel what date was written on the heart. He told her. Her eyes filled with tears. Then she revealed something that left Daniel speechless. Years earlier, before becoming CEO, Victoria had volunteered at a small children's hospital. One afternoon, she had met a little girl sitting beside her dying mother. The little girl had been terrified and kept asking whether her father would be okay after her mother was gone. Victoria had stayed beside them for hours. She remembered the child's mother giving her a small wooden heart and asking her to make sure the little girl never forgot that her father loved her. Victoria had never known what happened afterward. Daniel stared at her. He slowly realized that Victoria had been there on the worst day of his family's life. She remembered Lily's mother. She remembered Lily. And Daniel suddenly understood why Victoria had looked at the heart as if she had been struck by lightning. When they reached the hospital where Victoria needed to stop before her meeting, she refused to leave immediately. She told Daniel that she had carried the memory of that little girl for years, wondering whether she had grown up safely. Daniel called Lily. A few minutes later, Lily's sleepy voice came through the phone. Victoria began crying. She didn't hide it. For the first time, Daniel saw the powerful CEO not as an executive, but as a woman carrying an old memory she had never been able to forget. The next morning, Daniel expected nothing to change. He arrived at work early, prepared for another difficult day. But when he entered the conference room, Victoria was already there. She told everyone that the company had overlooked one of its most dedicated employees. She explained that Daniel had worked through grief, financial pressure, and parenthood without asking anyone for special treatment. She also announced a new employee support program for parents facing emergencies, inspired by what she had witnessed the night before. But she did something even more unexpected. She offered Daniel a promotion. Not because he had given her a ride. Not because she felt sorry for him. Because she had finally seen the strength behind the tired eyes of a man who had never stopped showing up for his daughter. Months later, Daniel's life looked different. His promotion allowed him to move into a safer apartment. Lily had a small room filled with books and drawings. And the old silver sedan was still parked outside. Daniel never replaced the wooden heart. Victoria eventually became a close friend of the family. Sometimes she would visit Lily with books, and Lily would proudly show her new drawings. One evening, Victoria asked Daniel why he had stopped that night instead of simply driving past her. Daniel looked at the little wooden heart and smiled. He said that his daughter had taught him something years ago: when someone is hurting, you don't always need to fix their entire life. Sometimes, you just need to stop and give them a ride through the storm. Victoria looked at the heart again, tears shining in her eyes. The object that had once represented Daniel's deepest loss had become a symbol of something completely different. It represented survival. It represented kindness. And most importantly, it reminded two broken people that sometimes the smallest acts of compassion can reconnect lives that were never supposed to meet again. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Kindness Corner for more emotional stories that remind us there is still goodness in the world. And before you go, comment, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe one small act of kindness can change someone's entire future. Because sometimes, the person asking you for a ride isn't just looking for a way home. Sometimes, they are being given a second chance to find their way back to hope.